All right, Jim, so let's touch on what happened last night. First of all, with the Twins, as they got beat by the Angels 6-2. They've now lost 4 in a row. Losing to the Royals, yeah, they've been a pretty good team. But losing to the Angels at home, certainly not a good sign, Jim.
Well, then they should have played better against the Royals, too. They're trying to beat the Royals. They're trying to pass the Royals. They should have played better this weekend. It just looks to me right now like the team we saw in 2022, where you say, okay, yeah, they have these nice pieces and they can't stay healthy. And by the end of the season, you have a half a team playing. And of course, the natural reaction of everybody is to blame, somebody in charge. What we're seeing now is a team that doesn't have enough good players on the field. And you have young guys, veterans, but especially young guys trying too hard. There are a lot of sayings in baseball in the clubhouse say you can't hit a 6-run homer. You can't get 3 hits from one at bat. It's a sequential game that requires a lot of patience. And if you go up there trying to fix everything that's wrong with your team with one swing or trying to throw the ball too hard if you're a pitcher, that's not how baseball works. You don't get better results. You get worse results. So, you see you look at that lineup. You look at that lineup and say they got like 3 guys who might carry your team. But Miranda's in a terrible slump after overachieving for a while. Lewis is in the worst slump of his life. Wallner has fallen off a little bit, although at least he's taking competitive at bats. And there's no Correa, there's no Buxton. Lewis isn't at his best. Jeffers has been bad lately. It's a team-wide epidemic. And when this happens, when teams try too hard or get bad thoughts in their head, that's when you see them expanding the strike zone, swinging at pitches they shouldn't swing at, and nobody can hit like that. So it's a horrible performance. But I think still a lot of it stems from just not having a healthy roster.
Royce Lewis addressed the slump, and he had 3 strikeouts last night. He's batting .243. The guy seemed like he could do no wrong when he played last year and when he came back and played this year as well. But he's kind of battled it. It looks like the last month, and it sounds like he had some of these struggles in the minors too.
He definitely had some struggles early in his minor league career. He's almost, in some ways, the opposite of a lot of young players. He succeeds. It's like every time he got called up, every time he restarted his major league career, he succeeded immediately. But what we're seeing now is him having to play through a long slump every day, and with a team that desperately needs him to perform. So it's just a bad stew here of him being in a terrible slump, him really not having had the opportunity to learn how to work his way through slumps very often in his life, and having a lot of pressure to carry a team all at once. That's a bad combination. He's always had a great attitude. This is the first time you've ever seen him just seem to be at a loss.
Is he visibly frustrated, or is he maintaining his positivity?
I would say he's definitely showing signs of stress at this point. He's very frustrated. He can't figure out how to get out of this slump. He is such a positive guy generally, and he's had the ability to just summon up, clutch performances time after time after time. For him to have trouble even taking a good at bat is shocking to him, and it is affecting him very, very visibly.
How do you? Guys come out of this. Teams come out of this. Is there a certain thing that either they can do or that needs to happen for them so they can kind of come out of this slump?
They really need to just simplify their approach. Just there's no time to think when a pitch is on the way to the plate, right? The pitch is going to arrive in a split second, so you have to be taking an approach where you're looking for, it's just baseball 101 stuff. You have to look for your pitch. You have to be competitive in the bat, which means getting a pitch to hit and doing something with it. Right now, they're making life easy for pitchers. They're swinging outside the strike zone. They're swinging at pitches want them to swing at. Right now, with Buxton and Correa out, it's a very young lineup. They have some talent, but the art of the at bat is everything in baseball. You can go back to Ted Williams' hitting chart. Nobody makes a living swinging outside the strike zone. Nobody makes a living swinging pitches down and away. You have to get a good pitch to hit and then hit it. And they're not doing either of those things right now.
Jim, switching attention to the Monday night game last night, 49ers beat the Jets 32-19. No Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason stepped in and did a really good job, 147 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers, made it through the game, 167 yards and a score with one interception for him. Your thoughts on last night's game?
Well, first of all, I think that fantasy football has become one of the main drivers of the American economy. And if Christian McCaffrey ain't going to play on Monday night, you got to tell us on Friday or Saturday.
Right.
My God, I had Jordan Mason on the bench. He would have won the league for me last night.
Did you hear after the game, Jordan Mason? They asked him, "When did you know you were going to start?" And he said, "Friday."
Yeah, that's wrong. I mean, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Not being serious about me being offended by it, but I'm serious. The NFL is making, and everybody's making so much money on fantasy sports. There has to be some honesty. If you're going to have an injury report, it's got to be accurate. But on to football, Mason looked great, and the 49ers, who had a lot of holdouts this offseason, they look really sharp. The Jets, I thought Rodgers made some great throws. He had zip on the ball, he had touch, but you look at the results. That's a really talented team, and they did not function. They did not run the ball well. They had, they had a drop early. They were not able to, handle the 49ers physically. I've been questioning all offseason, ever since they signed Aaron Rodgers, whether that was really going to work there. He's a weird guy. I'm not sure the head coach knows what he's doing. It's a talented roster, but it's a talented roster that's never done anything. Listen, it's the 49ers at San Francisco. They're going to have a lot easier challenges in this season. They very well could have a good season, but I'm still skeptical of that group.
Does Rodgers have enough left? It's at times he looked like his old self, but at other times he didn't look like the same guy.
He's old and he's coming off an Achilles injury, and he also does not strike anybody as the kind of guy who just, who spends the offseason just concentrating on football. He does weird things in the offseason. He's always been talented enough to generally get away with that. I don't know. I just don't know if that works when you're 40 and you're supposed to be driving success for an entire franchise. I thought he made some great throws. I also thought in general he didn't look quite like his old self.
Jim, so we don't know about Christian McCaffrey. Will he play against the Vikings on Sunday? Is that a question mark? And how do the Vikings approach this 49er team with or without him?
Obviously Mason can run between the tackles very well. McCaffrey does too. The real difference is that McCaffrey's such a great receiver. And Mason might be okay as a receiver, but he's a great running back who's also basically a great wide receiver who plays running back. And Mason isn't quite that. So I think the only major difference for game planning is that McCaffrey can run a greater variety of routes with probably more precision than Mason. So I think that's the only real tweak. You just wouldn't be as worried about Mason catching balls downfield.
They look like a really formidable opponent. Defensively, Warner's everywhere. Their defensive line, Bosa, was making things difficult for the Jets when what they were doing. Breece Hall is one of the better running backs in the league, averaged 3.5 yards a carry in last night's game. If you're the Viking offense, how do you approach this really good defense?
The most important thing, I saw a stat recently. I think Kevin O'Connell's like 18-0 when his team doesn't lose the turnover battle. They tied in the turnover battle on Sunday, I think, which made him 18-0 in that category. So you just can't turn the ball over, and you can't turn the ball over, and you have to play really well situationally, and it'll be interesting to see how Darnold handles this. This is a completely different challenge. Dexter Lawrence was really the only threat to them on last Sunday, and he made a couple plays, but in general, they schemed him in a way where their blocking kept him from destroying their game plan. Now, you can't just concentrate on one 49er defender. They have players all over the field, very good front seven, very physical. They are very good at causing turnovers. You saw them punch the ball out last night. So I would think the Vikings are going to have to avoid turnovers, and find a way to move the ball in a variety of ways. I'm sure the 49ers are going to be all over Jefferson. It'll be interesting to see if Darnold can get the ball to Jefferson when he's up against a great defense that's intent on stopping him.
Jim, the Minnesota Lynx are going to play at Atlanta tonight. Lynx have been rolling here lately. Your thoughts?
It's another game they probably should win. They're winning at an incredibly high rate right now. And I'm still just stunned by the success. You know, they're coming off 2 losing seasons. They did not do anything dramatic. I mean, they didn't get any superstars. Alana Smith and Courtney Williams have been fantastic for them, but they're not superstars. I really think it's the best job Cheryl Reeves ever done as a coach. When she won before, she obviously coached very well to win championships, but she also had great teams. She had Hall of Famers, lots of Hall of Famers. This is completely different. She is one star and a bunch of role players, basically. And which is why I think, you know, you can't just say, oh, they're going to go to Atlanta and win, because they're not that much more talented than any other team. They're less talented than some of the top teams. So they have to play really well. They have to move the ball extremely well. They play great team defense to win, and they've been doing that.
Jim, one last one for you. So St. Thomas men's basketball schedule includes games against Oklahoma State and Arizona State, while the Gopher men's basketball team, they have cupcakes when it comes to their non-conference schedule. Your thoughts on St. Thomas? Could they be kind of a fun watch for people that are interested in Division I basketball in this state?
Yeah. And it's a completely different mindset, as you just pointed out. St. Thomas wants to prove that they are, you know, they can be a big deal. And Gophers are taking the approach that, you know, you're remaking the roster every year. You better have some easy games to kind of ramp up and get these guys used to playing with each other before they face great competition in the Big Ten. Completely different mindsets. They feel like John Tower is like, bring it on. And Ben Johnson's like, man, I don't want to lose my job because I scheduled too many tough teams and end up with a losing record.
All right, Jim, what do you got in your podcasts?
Let's see, full slate is up. I would recommend Randy Shaver's high school football show, Kevin Gorg's hockey show, John Krasinski on the Timberwolves, Don Mitchell's show, plus outdoor content. Everything's at talknorth.com or on your favorite podcast app.
All right, Jim, thank you. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Jim.
It's Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column at the Star Tribune or his podcast at TalkNorth.com. Jim, once again today, brought to you by the Green Mill in downtown St. Cloud. Next on WJON, we have world and national news from ABC, and that is brought to you by Executive Express.